The Texas Historic Commission.
And Florence too.
Florence. Item 10 as well. Florence,
I'm sorry.
item 10. All right, we'll close them. Remind me of item 10. if they- Okay. No other citizens signed up to speak for the communication. Boards and commissions, committees, presentation proclamations. Cemetery committee did not meet this month. Besides cutting tree limbs through the roadways. Tyner Memorial Library, Ms. Susan.
So the stats, for January, we had 108 visitors, 15 new patrons, 88 books were checked out, 9 people came in to use the computers. We had 2 programs, they're both new. Domino's every Wednesday morning, story time. On Thursday morning, we had 11 attendees for the programs. 123.75 hours in volunteer time and 100 hours in employee time, and that's through the new AARP program. So AP Mitchell is the new library staff through that. We were able to spend the money from the Atlas grant. We got 3 brand new public laptops and a new desktop for the front desk, all for under $1,500. So Atlas money really went a long way. And I just want to let you all know that we were awarded the library rescue grant, and they'll be here at the end of the month to help us start weeding through the books that we do have, to set us up for the Hawker grant of $10,000 to purchase new books for the library. So we have a couple other grant things out there that we're hoping to come in, but those are really good.
Yeah. Good Awesome. Item 3, Municipal Development District monthly update. Anybody here from MDD? You got an update? They meet tomorrow night, don't they?
I believe so. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't have an update from them right now.
No update at this point. Item 4, Parks and Facilities Committee monthly update. Anything?
Yes, sir. We finally moved back, city staff back to the original city hall. It's a dramatic improvement. I mean, top to bottom. So we thank everybody who participated in that, from council approving the allocations and the funding and the scope, to Mr. Weaver for dedicating the man hours, and Mayor for his donations on supplies and things of that nature. So it all came together, and staff moved all their files back in there, and they were just blown away by how efficient and organized, and just the whole feel of the space is completely different. And it's a more accurate reflection of the direction we want to take the administration of the city into a more professional, proficient, and customer service friendly organization. So big deal for us.
Go over and see City Hall.
Yeah.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you, Mr. J.
Oh yeah. Yep.
All right, so a little something else underneath this one. Something we've been doing in the last couple months is employee recognition for when we have an employee reach a milestone in their career, or what would you say,
A significant achievement.
a significant achievement, a certification of some sort. And so this month we would like to recognize our one and only Erasmo Ortiz. Come on in, Erasmo.
Come on down, Mo.
Erasmo he went and took his exam, and he is now basic animal control officer training. He passed with flying colors.
He is certified. Yep.
That means he has to tackle 3 dogs without getting bit.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yep.
Appreciate you, sir. Congratulations. And we'll present this certificate of appreciation to you for passing the basic animal control test as animal control officer and living our organizational values of innovation and customer service.
I'll get it with him later in the office. Go on, get Mr. Mo.
Oh, man. Thanks, Bo. We appreciate you, sir.
If you see him trading furs on the side of the road, my
He's well versed in dog. Just trading furs on the side of the road. I like it.
Yeah.
I expect to see less cats in my neighborhood now. All right, moving along to the consent agenda, and we'll do these as one big approval at the end. We'll run through them real fast. Number 5, receive monthly department reports, city administrator.
Yes, sir. So as you know, we had a recent winter ice storm, which we'll touch on a little bit more further down the agenda. Our response to this storm was a marked improvement from our response to 2021 Winter Storm Uri. We had our guys on the job. Our lineman Curtis and his team did an outstanding job doing reconnects and everything in inclement weather and safely, and getting folks back on a lot faster than that big city just south of us here. So we can brag on our guys a little bit. We sure do appreciate all the hard work they did to get us through that storm. We're in the debriefing stage. Basically, we're assessing our response efforts. What are the areas we can improve, and how can we better coordinate staff in the event that happens? So we've implemented a few tools, like some forums that you've seen go out that'll help us track brush control, things of that nature, and prioritizing water and wastewater during prolonged power outages. So we've made some progress there as well.
Good deal. City Secretary.
The filing deadline for a place on the May 6, 2023 general election ballot is this Friday, 5 p.m. It's 2 council seats for a full 2-year term. On top of that, council, later on this agenda item, you will consider approving 2 separate propositions on the ballot that we've previously discussed. So in addition to the council terms, we'll also potentially consider adding wine for on-premise consumption within the city limits, and restaurant mixed beverages for on-premise consumption within the city limits. So that will have to go to ballot for formal approval, but if you approve that tonight, then we can get to that step. So.
Good deal. C, municipal court.
We had court earlier in January. The anticipated trial was pushed back to April, so we will work on that at that time. But it was very straightforward, so nothing major to report there.
Development services.
We had 13 total permits issued. 5 were commercial, 8 residential. We did 3 water taps, 2 sewer taps. We have 2 pending permits in review, both of which are commercial. ATS completed 9 inspections, and we're awaiting 5 more. And that is the month of January.
Utility billing.
We are 1 month away. At the end of this month, we will do a final data pull for our FundView software, and that'll be the last transition to that software. So our former one will now be a thing in the distant past, and we're full steam ahead on a cloud-based software that we can really leverage our staff with. So we're very, very excited about that. And instead of getting postcards in the mail with bills, we'll now be getting full-size letters with bills on there. More room for messages, a little nicer letterhead. And in next year's budget, we'll have the conversation about potentially adding a utility billing customer portal where individual customers can log in and see their previous bills, reprint their current bill, so forth, so forth. So we're on the verge of drastically improving our quality of service on the utility billing front, so we're very, very excited to be making that progress.
Public Works.
Right in line with the storm response, that's really what they've been occupied with. Our Public Works guys really helped with the brush clearance on the ground and clearing the right-of-ways, and also monitoring water and wastewater assets during that weather event. We're getting ready to coordinate brush pickup. We have, I believe at this point, 85 requests citywide for brush pickup stretched out across the whole city. So we're going to break it into quadrants or sections and start tackling these incrementally and get to it as best we can. So I would plan on a controlled burn at some point here in the next future, sometime while we're still in the late winter, early spring months, before the summer months come and it gets too hot to do something like that. So we'll be planning on that here in the near future.
Perfect. And last but not least, Mr. Policeman, Chief Holt.
Make sure everybody receives these.
Yes, sir.
Starting with the monthly report, there was 85 calls of service. Priority 1 was 4, priority 2, 26, priority 3, 43, priority 4, 12. Also, I provided a racial profiling report. If you look at page 2, number 7, it requires the chief administrator of the agency to submit an annual report of racial profiling information collected under subdivision 6 to Commission on Law Enforcement and the governing body of each municipality. I'm not gonna go over each one of them because it's like 7 pages. You go to the next page, which is 3, or what you see is page 1. So this is from 1/1/2022 to 12/31/2022. With 254 traffic stops. You're gonna see the street address or location of the stop. Majority is gonna be State Highway 218, Second City Street, that was 30 citation. Next is gonna see the race known prior to the traffic stop. 251, no. 3, yes. And then it's gonna have the breakdown of the race of the party that was stopped. Next, you're gonna see gender. Go to the next page. You're gonna see the reason for the stop. Majority of the traffic stop was moving traffic violation, 191. The second was vehicle traffic violation. Was a search conducted during the traffic stop? 18 yes, and then you're gonna see 236 no. And one thing I didn't say, if you see to the right, you're gonna see the percentage per race on each category, which I'll also have to submit. You can see the reason for the search, consent to. Probable cause was 14, incident to arrest 2. Breaking down, it talks about pretty much what was found beside the vehicle during the search. Was anything discovered? Next page is going to be, I'm going to skip all the way down to result of the stop. You'll see verbal warning 2, written warning 58, citations 1 to 89. Next section is going to be written warning and arrest. Next section, majority of the citation and arrest. That was 4. And then you see arrest based on majority is going to be outstanding warrant 3. Second is violation of penal code 2. And the last page was physical force resulting in body injury used during the stop. 0 yes, 254 no. Number of complaints of racial profiling for 2022 was 0. And for 12 o'clock tonight, I have this also submitted to Chico.
Thank you, Chief.
Excellent.
What
Thank you,
about
sir.
all these, data from Asia Pacific Islanders?
From the
I didn't know there was that many in this neighborhood.
From the Pacific Islands, right? That's where they came from. All right, thank you,
I can
Chief.
drive.
Appreciate you, sir. Item number 6, approved minutes from the following meeting, 1/9/2023. That's a regular meeting in your packets. Just need a motion to approve consent agenda in full.
I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
We got a Vicky Cooper motion and a Gail second. All in favor? 5-0. Moving on. So now we will get into the public hearings. We have a couple tonight. Which one were we supposed to start first, or is it, we're past the time?
We're past time. We can just go in order.
Item number 7, public hearing to grant variance special exception to what? Going on?
Sorry.
Public hearing to grant variance special exceptions to Williamson County Appraisal District property ID R007706-5, S3078, Bartlett, block 61, lot 1, acres, .255, also known as 805 West Elm Avenue in the city of Bartlett, Texas, to permit an R2 duplex and apartment zone area regulation variance. This is one we've been dealing with for a while now. This is Mr. Benitez. Mr. Benitez's property. I think you guys all know Mr. Benitez by now. So this is the we've done all the everything, the publishing and letters. And is there anybody in the audience who has something to speak on about this property for the public hearing?
I will just add that the order number in your agenda packet, order number 2023-0213-07, it outlines the principles that we discussed previously about this property here. And the key points are at the middle of the second page there. If approved, the order would set the guidelines that, that's the word compensate, but account for the unique circumstance presented to Mr. Benitez's property. The minimum lot area would be 4,000 square feet as opposed to 7,500 square feet. The ground floor area of a living dwelling unit would be 550 square feet as opposed to 600 square feet. The interior side setback, so if you recall, this property has obviously 4 sides: interior, rear, street facing side, and the front facing side. So the interior side yard setback would be 5 feet. So he can only place his house within 5 feet of his property line. The street side setback would be 7 feet from the fence line, and that fence line is described as 10 feet from any point along the city right of way. So it would go 10 feet from city right of way, and then 7 feet from that line would be his setback point. And he could place a fence along that 10-foot perimeter there. Other than that, we have also agreed in principle to work with Mr. Benitez on rerouting the street lights and the electric poles on that property to make it more efficient. So that way he has a safer, more accessible property here in the future. So by doing this, this will address this property, period. So not just Mr. Benitez as the current property owner, but any future property owners. This would set a precedent as to what was allowed and established for that. So we will take it from there.
Like you say, why we don't do why you guys don't want to do the easement? I hear this, that we can, like, start, because I was reading, and yeah, this is allowed. They say, that's what the liar, it's all, is, for 200 something houses within the street. I hate to give it this much, the feet. I believe that was 12 feet or something, starting from the feet. But I don't know, we had to look at all this. But again, how many feet you say from the street I can start building?
10 feet. And that is what we had discussed at a previous hearing where we had
10 feet the house, right? That's what I understand last time from 193.
it was 10 feet from the street would be,
Then I can start a house, right?
no, it's 10 feet from the street was where your fence can start, 10 feet from the street and your fence. And then from your fence, it's 7 feet from there. And that's to ensure
It's not
access.
a space. They don't feed it.
We had it up at that hearing, we talked about it and we talked about the different dimensions.
I understand 10 feet from the street.
Mhm.
There's gonna be the H at the house.
Yep.
This is the only, I give you the measures about the house. They don't wanna fit it.
Well, this is the same agreement that we talked about before, that I gave you a copy of. So it's, and like we talked about at the previous hearing, it's either this granting a variance, or you're gonna have to replat the property into a larger parcel, and it's only one, and then from there you can meet the setback requirements and so forth. So that's the current state of the situation.
Well, I understand, because they don't wanna fit it. That is what I asked you guys. Start the work on my thing, what it is.
We did.
What's the dimensions of the house, sir?
Believe it was, yeah, the house,
You know the width, the dimensions?
40 wide, I believe it's 40 or 45. I don't get it right now, but like, something like that for 20, no, for 30. Something like that, there was a house. And their land started from the road, like what it is, the road right now, is 45 feet.
I believe
For what I get the fence.
it was a 20 by 30, because the projected living area was 600 square feet,
That's what I recall as well.
which is why the minimum was set at 550 for a bit of a adjustment room, just in case those dimensions weren't 100% accurate. So I think we've spent a lot of time on this matter. So what the order is what we have basically come to in terms of previous discussions. So it is at the conclusion of this hearing, council can make an action item on the order to either approve it or unapprove it and move on. So, and if it is unapproved, then this issue cannot be revisited for a minimum of 6 months.
If we do approve it though, then we set a precedent, even if Mr. Benitez decides not to move forward his portion of that,
Mhm.
but that's still established for that lot as well, correct?
We would have a draft of it, so if there's any new property owner for it, then we already have basically a predetermined starting point for that whole conversation, which is well thought out.
So the variance go with the property if it's sold?
I'd have to double check with legal, but that would be my initial thought.
10 foot to the fence and 7 foot to the house.
To the front of the house.
And that's off the edge of the current road.
It-
That's 17 feet off the road.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly, that's what now that's what they supposed to be. Last time I understand 10 feet from the start, from the edge of the whole 10 feet, then my house can start, so 10 feet. Now I understand it's gonna be 17 feet now. So that I'm gonna fit it, that's what I realized last time, you know?
Well, if council, you approve this order, it approves basically the dimension. So there's still the possibility that if the attachment in the Exhibit A does not fit for whatever reason, then he could potentially find another dwelling unit that does fit those dimensions, which is again, why we 600 square foot dwellings, square footage was 600, which is why we put it at 550, to give a little bit of wiggle room to accommodate for anything of that nature. So it's kind of already some built-in flexibility for something like that.
Mr. Benitez, do you want us to proceed on with this variance?
That's it, but I mean,
Yes,
what
Move.
I mean,
Continue with it, move forward with it.
move forward with it.
seguirle con los 17 pies, con los 10 pies, es que es lo único que sabe con 10 pies.
No, sí, yo se entiendo, pero el señor está preguntando que si usted quiere seguir adelante con los números que él está dando a usted.
Con los 17 pies ahora, y si no,
Okay, so
If there's no, then there's a minimum 6 months before this can even be considered again before city council.
déjalo solamente solo.
That's where we're at.
Sir,
Pull it up here.
we've been over this a couple of different times already.
Yeah, exactly.
And we
Last
laid
time, I understand, I asked you those 2 times. 10 feet on the edge and the wall. That's what I asked. Period. I asked 2-3 times if I understand you say yes. So now where the other 7 feet come? So now it's 7.
The order is, lot area says 4,000 square feet, ground floor area of the structure, 550 square feet. Interior side yard setback, 5 feet, street side setback, 7 feet from the fence line, fence, 10 feet from any point of the city right of way. Fence may be placed along property line on the interior side and rear of property line. Fence along front of property line must comply with city ordinance existing at the time of the passage. And so that's how it was drawn up, sir, and we've discussed this in the previous meetings. So we need to move on. I mean, we can either approve it as it's written right now, we can take it to the council here, get their vote on it. If it's approved, it's approved. If not, we can't talk about it again for another 6 months. So,
Now the other option is, you see the house?
I see your house,
Yeah.
but I don't know the dimensions
Show
of
me
this
the
house.
picture. This is the face. This is the house right there, this paper, says more rectangle.
Yes.
I was planning to put it like that, rectangle, right? This is more, say, white, much larger.
Mhm.
Can I put the house like that? So then the fits.
As long as you have a front
Facing Elm Street.
facing Elm Street.
Because your address for this
There's
is,
gonna be the door right here, and the street's gonna be at the front. It's gonna be like manufactured house.
the address,
Like,
If-
say like manufactured house.
If you have a landing, if your door's on the side, but you have a landing that goes directly to your door that
Yeah,
faces
I-
Elm
I-
Street,
see, the
then
door
that'd be
is gonna
okay.
here. My phone is gonna be here, the door's gonna be here, and then I can do this hard work right here. So then the house fits. You guys can get me to do that?
But where's your front door gonna be? On facing Elm Street?
No, it's gonna be,
well, we run into similar issues with this, especially when it comes to,
see.
Manufactured
show
homes.
the picture, show the picture.
so even if you orient
Is
it,
This is the front door, see?
This manufactured home?
no,
This
it's
is the front
small,
door.
it's like a modular home.
and you're wanting this
It's a 20
facing
by
Kimball
30.
Street.
And so if you did,
It's gonna be facing Kimball or the other lot too.
so if you did it,
Can be facing, because it's 2 doors, it's also the back door.
here's Kimball,
It has 2 doors.
and
The
he's saying
problem is it
instead of
doesn't
putting
meet
the
the
house
requirement of
here, the door
to the
facing the
front
street.
So then I'm good with
He's
it.
asking if you can build it sideways to fit.
You
the
don't
front
wanna lose the
door
house,
here,
and I wanna,
and we're
if you get
saying,
to put it like
Okay,
that,
you have to put a landing with steps facing Elm Street.
because they don't fit it.
And
So with the address
therefore,
of this property
we
being
run
on
into some
Elm
issues
Street,
Elm Street, correct.
your front door is supposed to face Elm Street for 911 purposes. If you have a emergency situation at that house and it comes in as Elm Street,
I don't
my
know.
man back there has to be able to, he's gonna come to the Elm Street side of your house, not to the Kimball Street. And so he's gotta be able to get access to your house
No, they can be,
where the address is.
Look at it. The door is right here, right? And the front, if you look at the picture. For example, at the bottom, it's gonna be like L, right? At the bottom of the picture, at the edge, at the bottom of the line. There. It's supposed to be L right there, exactly like that, or like that. So now if we move it like that, it's gonna be the door right here. So then I can just close with the fence here, but I can leave the door here and sidewalk to the front. It's gonna still be my front to the L. So the emergency, whatever can come to the house.
But it faces north, there's no.
If you get me to do that, I am okay with the measures. What you guys say.
We have to be careful with that because with the same with the modular homes. If the door is on the side, there should be a landing in the driveway that needs to open to Elm Street,
Mhm.
not to the other street.
Correct.
Correct. So your front door, you can't have a sidewalk going from your front door to the street, what is it, street?
Kimball.
Elm and Kimball. Mhm.
You can't use Kimball as an
No,
access
no,
to your front door.
I say, Cable, I wanna close, I wanna do the fence on the cable, I wanna
Well, if you
close.
remember, this is a
My house, what I live, and the ice thing, what I live in right now,
Yes.
it's like that. The door is right here, I get the sidewalk, and my phone is there.
So, what do you remember it was the, dotted line.
If
You can put it
no,
right here.
if
He'd have
no-
plenty of space.
why we don't do again the exception for the manufactured house? So then I can put one like this.
Well, this is not a variance for a manufactured house.
Yeah, no, I said if we do
That
it,
was denied already. A manufactured home was already denied. Correct, we had that variance here. So manufactured home was denied because this is a Elm Street address, which is a main thoroughfare.
so I'm okay with it, just, you know, if you give me to do that, I don't wanna lose, I
We
wanna
can work
close
with
it.
it.
Just need to make the
Yeah.
decision if that's what we
Yeah,
want
we
to
can
do or
say
not.
to the city,
We
accept that if he doesn't.
I just think,
He's not, not right.
Go to what you got.
So is this a frame structured house,
Correct.
wood frame? Okay, and you're having it
You want
moved?
me to draw a little bit, that you guys understand?
I understand, I fully
You
understand.
understand what I'm saying?
I fully
So,
understand.
Mayor, if the door is wrong, can it not have like almost a porch that comes out that has the?
That's what he's talking
That's
about, a
what I'm
landing, a landing and
a
a
landing and
sidewalk going out
that
the
goes
back.
to Elm Street, similar to a manufactured
But I
home.
think,
Come here, miss.
I think in fairness, if it is voted in,
Well,
somebody needs to.
All you guys are
explain
approving
this.
are the guidelines. You guys are setting the guidelines
Yes.
So,
that you say,
so,
yes, if he
This is
meets
the
this,
phone
so
then yeah, he
if
can
this
put
is
something on.
Campbell Street
That's
right
up
here.
to
You got
me
Campbell?
and Rose to work with him to
Exactly,
make sure that,
And-
okay,
and
look,
Elm
council
Street's
has
gonna be over
approved for you to be in these
here.
guidelines.
And so if you build a porch off here.
I don't wanna build no porch.
And it comes out this way, meeting.
I can do it, yes, I can do what I can do. Yes, I will, right.
That makes sense.
So then my phone is gonna still be here, use the house is gonna be like that.
This cannot be fenced off.
Hmm?
This cannot be fenced off.
And,
I
right,
wanna
and then
fence it with
that's an issue that we
So I
experienced.
don't wanna lose for nothing here.
I know you don't want to deal with this guy, but this here cannot, this can be fenced back
Takes care
here,
of it.
but not in front of here.
No.
You can't-
It's almost like
Fence
a
all
duplex
around
deal
the street.
with markets.
Yeah,
Don't
this
have
is
to
space
on
right
and
here,
on
this
and
for
on and
the
on.
fire,
That duplex
any person
with
who
markets
comes, I
and
wanna
Zimmers.
build like a steps or whatever here.
It's just
So then they
draw that line
get space to come here. But I wanna fence, okay, so all this space gonna be open, so they can come. It's like my other manufactured house, but I guess the same, like that.
So the city ordinance says you can't have a fence in front of your front door. So where your front door is, you can't have a fence in front, to the front of the house. So if this is going to be your front door, your fence has to stop right here. So this would be your fence there. It can't be here.
Because I told you very clear, my land starting from the other lot to here is 45 feet. 45 feet. We playing 10 feet, starting the house from the road and then 5. That's what I understand last time. But like that, I can just close, build the fence here in the edge and the cable, and then just I wanna put a sidewalk right here or rocks or something that my face is gonna be here, the phone. So then I build the porch of my car or whatever here.
So you can say you can have a fence from here to here, or from here back here, back here. On. You gotta leave this open,
Jen?
right?
You can do it. There's a way to do it.
There's a way to do it, we just gotta pass the ordinance.
So he's wanting this lot, so this is how this lot is. This would be, basically this dash line would be his buildable location from here. Okay, and he's wanting to put this house, in this property like this.
Right. Which is easy, you gotta be 17 feet off the road.
He wants to put his house like that. It doesn't be facing Kimball.
And he'd have to build a landing that faces Elm Street.
It can't be fenced.
Can't be fenced.
Let's,
That's gonna come up to here.
But look,
let's move forward here, we can spend all night trying to hash this out.
Yeah. So,
this would be a conversation to have between me, you, Rose, and Mr. Benitez on where
I'd
exactly
like
to
to
put it.
make a motion, if everybody's ready. Make a motion that we approve the grant variance to property ID R 7706 AS 3078.
So you wanted to make the motion to approve the current as written.
As written.
Order as written.
As written.
I'll second.
We have a Vicky Cooper motion to approve this as written. No changes. We got a Ray Uson second. All in favor? Carries 5-0. So, sir, we can get together again. It's approved as it's written. We can get together again and we can talk about this further, okay? As it's written, okay? But not tonight. We got a meeting to have. Okay, so let's get with Joseph, myself, Rose, and whoever else we need to get involved.
No.
Okay, so,
What time did we do? That's good. I'll go back and record it.
Pero vamos a la noche, a mí sí me decís, ya terminamos parte de usted, porque tiene que conseguir con lo demás de la junta. Pero van a tener que hablar con usted a otros meses. Pero a mientras,
That's the problem.
There's a solution.
Yeah.
There's a solution. It's working.
Okay, moving on.
Are you gonna have something like document something?
Right here. I got it right here. Yeah.
Moving on. Item number 8, public hearing to rezone approximately 3 acres from B2 General Business District to the R3 House Trailer District to B1 Retail Business District downtown area regarding the following properties. Williamson CAD, R327682, S3160, Bartlett, City of, Block 10, Lot 13 through 15, acres, .5165. Williamson CAD, R007537, S3160, Bartlett, City of, Block 10, Lot 12, East 76 feet, all lots 3 through 12, acres, .8907. Williamson CAD, R007536, S3160, Bartlett, City of, Block 10, Lot 1 through 2, west 54 feet, acres, .0735. Bellcad, 198158, Bartlett Original Block 009, Lot point 1 through 3, Part 1 through 3, is that point or part? Whatever, PT 1 through 3. East 25 feet of 1 and 2, and south 30 foot of east 25 feet of 3 acres, .075. We got 3 more to go, hold on. Bellcad, 10449, Bartlett Original Block 009, Lot Part 1 through 3, west 25 feet of east 50 foot of 1 through 3. Bellcad 20384, Bartlett Original Block 009, Lot 1011, Part 12, west part of 12, City Hall. Bellcad 20383, Bartlett Original Block 009, Lot Part 1 through 3, 12, west 80 feet of 1 through 3, and east part of 12.
Did you say that?
I am not repeating that. You can go home and watch YouTube and rewind. All right, so we, this public hearing, it started at 7:56 for this one. So, anybody here to speak on this? This is the district right here, which is commonly known as the lumberyard, and City Hall, and the 2 buildings right next door, if I recall.
No, Tribune.
The old Tribune and the old laundromat or whatever it was.
Harry Orner with the.
And so basically, we're rezoning this from what it currently is to a mixed-use district. So,
What is it meant?
Basically, it's the same as what it is downtown now.
That's it, yeah.
Yes, sir, yeah.
Just move it this way.
basically extending the downtown district this way. Anybody here to speak of? Tell Joseph he's gonna have to come back in here. This guy's just gonna, I'm sorry, he's been through this for hours and hours and hours. I need him in here to take care of this meeting. Sorry. Frustrated.
What, 6 months?
Every day.
I understand the language barrier, I understand it, but we've been on this 307 times.
Okay, Joseph, we've read all this, and I'm not rereading it. We started at 7:56 on this hearing.
This is just the hearing, just the hearing, and I take full accountability for this. I did not publish, so if you recall, this was originally scheduled for a special meeting in late October. We didn't have quorum for that meeting, so we canceled it. We put it on the November meeting, but I only put out one notice as opposed to the required two, the letters and the newspaper. I only did one or the other. And then we had the holidays, and then we had to send out the notices again in January. So this is why it's continued to be on the agenda. And I apologize for that, Ms. Jennifer. I apologize for that. But with the date the notices were sent out, they were both the letters and the newspaper. You have to have the hearing, and then from 30 days, council cannot take action on it until after 30 days from the date the notices were sent. And that date is February 26th. So that directly aligns with your meeting on the 27th. So on February 27th, council can take action on this rezone ordinance and be done with it. But not now. So this is just a hearing. It's just a hearing. If nobody's here to speak on it, then we can move forward with it.
Anybody here to speak on it?
Did you say hearing start time? 7:56. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm doing my dad's a resident here, and he actually lives behind the utility building here.
Yes, ma'am.
He's on Peach Street.
Uh-huh.
So the whole rezoning of these lots doesn't necessarily affect this property. It's just the lumber yard, the old lumber yard, correct?
Correct.
Just the lumber- Does it include?
Yes.
No,
It's just moving.
Residential house.
it does include the utility buildings.
But not the property behind.
No. So it only changes the properties that were explicitly listed in the hearing. Now, the reason you got a letter is because you're within a certain distance of those properties. So it could change the nature of your neighborhood is essentially why they send it. But, right, but nothing's happening at the utility building. That's still a city-owned property. Nothing changed there. The only reason to do it was to make it a contiguous historic downtown. So that's why that's there. But the key component of it is the lumberyard property, which is bisected commercial and residential, and it needs to have a uniform zoning to permit the remodel and the renovation going there. So, mhm. And if you have any other questions, I'm more than happy to speak with you at a later time. And okay.
It will not.
Right.
It will not. Yes.
All right, thank y'all so much.
Absolutely. Thank y'all. Sorry it took so long to get to this point. Thank y'all for patience.
Oh, really?
Anybody else here to speak on this? If not, we're going to close the hearing. Move on to future agenda item.
Yes, sir. Yep. It's already earmarked for it. Yes, sir.
So we'll close that at 8:03. All we need to do on the public hearing.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I'm gonna have to read all that stuff in the 27th.
Now, if it's on consent agenda, we're good. Then you can just approve the consent agenda.
All right. Your fault.
I know, sorry.
Thank you.
You want me to get you a water?
Regular agenda, review, discuss, and consider action. Item number 9, discuss, review, take any necessary action related to awarding engineering services contract to MRB Group for City of Bartlett's 2021 TxDOT Safe Routes to School Pedestrian Walkways Project.
Yes. So I spoke with TxDOT this morning and later today. It has to go through a certain sequence of red tape at the state level. And we did not meet that point for tonight's meeting. So unfortunately, we cannot take action on this. However, we are aiming for the 27th meeting. They said if it doesn't get through the state approvals at that point, then the March 13th meeting would be the next one. And they stated that either meeting would still be sufficient to meet our projected timeline for the project. So the projected timeline is January 2024 for the letting of the project, which means that's where it goes out for formal bidding. So between the time so by the time we award engineering to the time of letting in January 2024, the engineers would have 9 months to do the design and every other step of the approval process. So this was just a slight hiccup. This will be on another agenda here in the near future.
You spent so much time with them, Patricia, trying to get everything together.
All right, so no action on item number 9. Moving on to item number 10.
Correct.
receive presentation, discuss, review, take any necessary action related to the Texas Historic Commission Certified Local Government Program. Thank you for being patient. Welcome to Bartlett.
How's the weather up there?
It's usually a little nicer and fresher, I think.
Probably so.
No. Oh, beautiful.
Very nice.
I can't tell if it's now.
And her last name? Guess what her last name is?
No.
This is perfect. This is perfect. This is exactly what we've been talking about. So it says here, if you open it up, you have to adopt and enforce a
So I'm
local
filling the
preservation
roles with
ordinance.
the Texas Historical Commission. I'm a certified local government coordinator. The Texas Historical Commission is the state agency for historic preservation. And I was asked to come and talk to y'all a little bit tonight. I won't take up too much of your time about the certified local government program. I understand that Bartlett is interested in starting a preservation program here. And the certified local government program is a partnership we have with local governments. You don't have to be a CLG to have a local preservation program, but we do offer a lot of best practices. I think there's some information in there that should be helpful as you guys are starting to pursue this. So as I mentioned, the Texas Historical Commission is the state agency for historic preservation. We work with communities around the state to help them preserve the places in their communities that matter to them. And when we say preservation, we don't mean, we're not trying to freeze cities in time or freeze a downtown commercial district in time. We're just trying to manage change. And as people are moving in and the uses of these buildings are changing, making sure that that happens in a way that is compatible with the historic character of the building and helping communities figure out how to do that in a way that works for building owners and works for them and helps them keep places that they really value in their communities. The communities we work with, we found that preserving older buildings helps house people affordably, increases density and walkability, improve or supports small local business and cultural vitality, and creates local jobs and really contributes to the local economy more than new construction and replacing historic excuse me. So what is the Certified Local Government Program? This is a program that was created at the federal level through the National Park Service to encourage local participation in historic preservation and kind of set a standard for preservation at the local level. So the CLG program is a partnership between the federal government with the National Park Service, the state level through the Texas Historical Commission, and then local governments, and that could be cities or counties that participate in the CLG program. And our goal is to empower local communities to protect their historic resources by helping communities identify their preservation priorities and ensuring that they meet recognized historic preservation services and also providing access to financial and technical services. In Texas, the CLG program is currently made up of 77 communities. We have 17 counties and 60 cities that participate in the program. I see you yawning. Trying to make it more interesting.
No.
So why become a CLG?
He's married. We do that all the time.
Benefit from a strong partnership with the local government, the state, and the federal government. One of the primary benefits is technical assistance. As a CLG, communities have access to getting advice from our program and other programs at the Texas Historical Commission. We regularly are reviewing historic preservation ordinances, whether they're existing ordinances or the community's adopting a new one. We review design guidelines. We can help preservation officers in the city interpret preservation standards. We can't always tell them how they should interpret their ordinance or how they should review a project, but we can usually point them to a community that's in a similar situation or best practices in the preservation community. Another benefit is the CLG network. Our network connects historic preservation officers at cities and counties and preservation commissioners from across the state. We have a listserv that preservationists and CLGs across the state can communicate on, and we communicate with them and send out information about training opportunities and questions and answers. We're really trying to build that network so that preservation officers around the state can communicate and figure out what's working best for them. We also offer training opportunities. We do camp trainings through the National Alliance for Preservation Commissions every year, and that brings in preservation leaders from across the country to speak about topics that are of interest to CLGs around the state. And CLG staff is also available to come to CLG communities and talk to you in person for trainings about whatever your commission needs to learn about. And that could be design review or conducting a commission meeting, Robert's Rule of Order, anything like that. The biggest draw to the CLG program is grants. We get funding every year. The state of Texas gets funding from the National Park Service through the Historic Preservation Fund. And every year, the amount of money that the Texas Historical Commission gets, we're required to pass 10% of that on to CLG communities. In fiscal year 2022, that meant we had $173,000 worth of grant funding that were distributed to CLG communities. We usually fund between 7 to 10 projects every year, and they usually range from $2,000 to $30,000. It is a matching grant program, so there needs to be a one-to-one match. The local match can be cash or it can be in kind, so it could be staff time or donated time, things like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be a cash match. And those grants can fund historic resources surveys where you're sending people out into the field to identify potential historic districts. They can fund National Register nominations, preservation plans, writing a preservation ordinance or design guidelines, or even brick and mortar projects. If the CLG community has a historic building that they need to do some work on, we have funded projects like that as well. Let's see, now I'll walk you through what it takes for a city to become certified. If you look in your handouts, there's a red list of certified local government program requirements for cities, and they're slightly different from counties, so I didn't include the county ones. The primary factor that a city needs to do to become a certified local government is to adopt and enforce a local preservation ordinance. So an ordinance is something that would allow for the designation of historic buildings and set up a preservation commission that would review any changes being done to those buildings or review any permits applying for demolition of those buildings. The ordinance or the city would need to establish a preservation commission with design review authority, review alterations to and demolitions of designated properties following the Secretary of the Interior standards. And there's a copy of those standards in the folder as well. And these are just 10 brief guidelines that were established by the National Park Service to guide work to historic buildings. And they're kind of vague and open to interpretation because they're meant to apply to every situation. So these are the guidelines that we expect CLG communities to adhere to when they're reviewing changes and work to historic buildings. To become a CLG, a city would need to establish criteria for the designation of properties and be able to enforce a minimum 60-day stay of demolition for landmarks or contributing properties in historic districts. CLG communities also need to appoint a historic preservation officer. In smaller communities that you do have a few communities that have a volunteer historic preservation officer. In other communities, you have the director of planning or development serves as the historic preservation officer. We see a lot of variety depending, like the city of Dallas, obviously they have a fully staffed preservation department at the city, but smaller communities, we found ways that they can appoint someone to that position. So the biggest factors for cities in becoming a CLG are really the preservation ordinance, appointing a commission, and appointing a historic preservation officer. And all of those are outlined in those red sheets, things that would need to be done. And as I said, if the city is interested in developing a preservation program, there's no requirement that you apply to become a CLG. It's a process that can take, depending on where a city is, it can take 6 months to a year to get to a position where you are certified as a CLG. If you already have an ordinance in place, it's a little quicker. The CLG program accepts applications from prospective CLG communities at any time throughout the year. What we request typically is that you contact us and start to work with us. And if you have an ordinance, we would review that and make recommendations, make sure it meets kind of our minimum requirements for an ordinance, but also we usually make broader recommendations just reflecting best practices. There's a lot of variety in the way the ordinances that we work with are written. You know your community best and you know what would work for your community. So we'll make recommendations based on preservation best practices and just making sure it's clear and readable, but we do have minimum requirements that have to be met for this CLG program. Once all of the requirements are met, we would have the city submit a certification application to us, and we would review that and submit on to the National Park Service, and they're the ones who actually certify CLGs. That's my elevator pitch for the CLG program. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I've got a couple quick ones. It says here, appoint a historic preservation officer. I'm assuming that's in title, not necessarily adding a staff member specifically dedicated for that. It's appointing the title to, and could that be either a council member or a citizen volunteer or staff member?
Yes.
There's really no, okay.
We recommend that whoever's in that position be Secretary of the Interior, meet the Secretary of the Interior's professional qualification standards. So typically that's having background in historic preservation or architecture, but we recognize that in a lot of communities around the state that is hard to come by.
Mhm.
So we ask that you try and find someone with that experience, but if you don't have it, then that's okay.
Now, what are the grant funding cycles? Is it just, what's it, rolling admission? I don't know what the technical term is.
No, they usually open up, so we get our funding from the National Park Service every year, usually in the spring.
Okay.
We'll open up for the fiscal year 2022 grant cycle. The application was posted in October,
Mhm.
and applications were due in mid-November.
Mhm.
The commission just awarded those grants at their end of January meeting. And then
Okay.
applicants it's a 3-year grant cycle, so we get new money every year, so we have 3 grant cycles going on at the same time. Applicants have 3 years to complete the work, but with contracting and how long that takes, it's usually about a 2.5-year cycle that you have to complete the project.
Do buildings or districts have to be declared as a historic site?
Because our funding comes from the federal government, there are a lot of requirements. And for a brick and mortar project, if you actually wanted to do work to replace the roof on a building or tuck point a building or something like that, the building would have to be listed in the National Register of Historic Places. It could be individually listed, or it could be like in your downtown historic district. It would have to be a contributing building to that historic district, meaning it's from the time period and wasn't too altered when the district was listed.
I see. So it sounds like, Mayor, Council, we've talked previously about establishing a historic preservation committee, and this would be a great initial project for them to get educated on, develop an action plan. What are the steps that will be taken? What are the impacts, not just on preserving the downtown, but how would that affect our permitting process? How would that affect design standards, so forth, so forth. So there's a lot that goes into it. But I think that'd be a good task for the preservation committee, historic preservation committee.
Did I hear right, that's something actually contracted with your program? Would be like a contracted payment thing we have to give you every year or whatever? Or?
No, the CLG program, there's no fees, nothing
Okay.
associated with it. Yeah.
I heard a contract, well, I don't have to even line.
Isn't it part of that grant thing we were talking about?
If we were to award the city a grant, we would have to sign a contract.
Yes,
And there's a
that's what I thought.
certification agreement that you would sign with the National Park Service. Yes, sir.
So is it strictly just city properties or city grants, or is it something like an individual can apply for too if they have a historical building themselves or a historical house or a historical church?
Yeah, that's a great question. An individual within the CLG community could apply for a grant. They would need to have the sign off of the CLG to do that. They don't tend to score quite as high as community planning projects or city projects under our scoring criteria, but yeah, they're eligible and able to apply.
The numbers chance.
Do you have an example of what some grant projects have been in the recent past?
Yes, we have a lot of examples.
Good,
Let's
good.
see, we
That means
just-
they're giving that money away. Yeah.
Comal County is a CLG, and they have been very active in the CLG grant program for the last 15 years. Since counties don't have land use authority, they can't actually zone properties as historic. But their role is identifying historic properties and kind of helping the communities within the county to create historic districts and things like that. So about, I think, 10 years ago or 12 years ago, Comal County applied for a CLG grant for a historic resources survey of the entire county. So they hired consultants to come in and look at all of the development within the county and figure out where there were potential areas of historic districts. And then they applied for subsequent grants to actually do National Register districts and list and designate those districts that were identified in earlier surveys.
Mhm.
Let's see, the city of Tyler just did They just completed a CLG grant. They did a National Register nomination for their downtown historic district, which they've been wanting to do for years. And that's now that we have a state tax credit for historic properties in Texas, and that can be combined with the federal rehabilitation tax credit, that's a really powerful incentive for developers looking at going into historic buildings.
Anything around here close by?
Let's see.
These
Yeah,
are 100
like
miles.
real close by, like next door.
What?
Is that Granger?
Oh,
Brian is relatively close.
yes, closer than the other place.
Yeah, Brian so they had tried to list their downtown historic district in the National Register in the 1980s, and it was found to be it didn't have enough integrity. Buildings had been changed too much. So they put a facade grant program in place and a lot of other preservation tools, and have been kind of slowly fixing up downtown. And they just were awarded a CLG grant to do a National Register nomination for their downtown district because it's improved to the point that our National Register coordinator thinks that it's eligible for the National Register. And that came about because there was a developer interested in purchasing a building and rehabilitating it, and they wanted to be able to utilize federal and state tax credits for that. Let's see, look at my list. Close by.
So a couple thoughts about our downtown is from what I've gathered so far and what I've seen, the red brick streets are a huge point of our downtown. If we wanted to rehabilitate the street to the historic standard, would there be grant funding available for that? And what about the interaction between, if we identified a historic building downtown that we approached the property owner and said, hey, we're a certified local government through THC, we can apply for grant funding. Would you be interested? And let's say we got grant funding. What's the collaboration between the city and that property owner? I mean, who dictates what happens? I'm just saying there's a private and a public trying to work together on a singular project. And I can see that getting not dicey, but there would be some things that need to be navigated when it relates to grant funding.
Yeah, typically I've not seen a CLG grant program or a CLG grant used in that way. We see a lot of facade grants where cities are creating a facade grant to help encourage rehabilitation of facades in the downtown district, and that would be between the city and I guess that, a nonprofit could apply for a CLG grant. I don't think a private property owner would be eligible though.
Okay. Just curious. So again, this would be, I think, a good process for a committee to do a lot of the legwork on it and then come back and present to council about what some of the questions are. So,
When you say facade, you mean they just approve money for the front part of the building?
Yes. Facade.
It's not in our language back on the wrong.
Doesn't translate.
Yeah.
Yes, Ms. Reed.
So part of the bonus to become a CLG here is we're opening up maybe other private entities to get other federal bonds. Is that what you were saying that once the community or if it's an area that is within a CLG, it then means that there's other opportunities, not necessarily the CLG grant itself, that it then allows the city and how the citizens that they own within that CLG area to get other federal grant
laser
dollars.
point.
What I understood?
Trying to think of, so the fact that you have your downtown district is listed in the National Register, building owners in that district already take advantage of state and federal tax credit because it is a listed historic district. And you don't have to be a CLG to do that. There are programs like that that you can take advantage of without the community being listed by local government. If you were a CLG, then you have nonprofit private property owners who are CLG could not apply for a CLG grant, but the city could apply for a grant for nonprofit or educational institutions.
Yes, ma'am.
What about the potential impact for the CLG and all the potential historic zoning and changes? If, for example, all the permits have already been issued and approved and all the fronts have already been knocked out, there may be some historic preservation that could be done with the interiors, but half of the exteriors are already knocked out and approved to be, basic metal squares.
Well, I think that's where you referenced a facade program like the city of Bryan did, where I think they ran into something similar through that facade grant. they were able to rehabilitate the exteriors to more match the original structures of the building. So the MDD currently is exploring some facade grants. There are some other avenues available that we could keep in mind. But the challenge with that has been, how do we regulate that when we don't have something like a historic preservation ordinance in place in the first place?
Right.
And those buildings were deteriorating to the point where any structural reinforcement at this point would benefit the long-term health of it. So, but that's a good question. That's a really good question. Sweet. Any other?
Mr. Rome, you had signed up for this. I mean, this is the one you wanted to speak on, item 10.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I've been involved in historic preservation efforts pretty much since I've been in Bartlett. I had one of the historic buildings downtown, and it's not designated historic, but it's in the downtown historic district. And in those days, we had a volunteer association, downtown property owners, and people like Karen Powell and her husband and several other property owners used the information available from the Texas Historic Commission, the Downtown Property Owners Association, to maintain our facades, maintain our interiors, and paint with historic colors. I've been a proponent of using the historic preservation guidelines for a number of years, and many of us practice that as downtown property owners. If you would look at the facades in the 200 block, you'll see that they're mostly intact and have been preserved. We also brought, on many occasions, brought people from THC and also from Elgin, who are award-winning preservationists, Amy Miller and her crew, and their emphasis was on preservation of the facade. And you all had the historic guidelines that have been available for decades, and you certainly could have, with your authority as city council members, required as part of the permit process that those facades be maintained. I also work in support of the VAC and the old school, preserving another early 1900s facility as a member of the board of directors for the VAC, and I also work with the Bartlett First United Methodist Church as a vice chairman of the board of trustees, and we've had 2 or 3 good projects. We haven't had an opportunity on the Williamson County side to obtain much grant funding. Now, Florence has done an excellent job on the VAC on the Bell County side, obtaining grants. And they have been approved by Bell County historical people. So we are following the guidelines there, voluntarily following the guidelines. I hope that you would reverse some of the work that's been done downtown in the 100 block, or stop that situation where the facades are replaced with contemporary frontage on the building, because you're ruining the historic preservation characteristics of our downtown. Thank you very much. And I do support you adopting this. I hope you do.
Thank you, Mr. Rome. Florence, did you have something to say?
Yes.
Thank you.
I am very appreciative that Ms. Little came to speak with us tonight. And I have been writing some grants for the old school. And the reason that I needed more information was because it said that the city had to be certified local government. So I went to my local library, who helped me find out more information about it. And in order for us to get a grant from the Texas Historical Commission, we do have to be a certified local government here. So I am encouraging all of you who sit on city council to help us and you all pursue this designation so we can move forward and perhaps get more grants for all of those buildings downtown. And I think that you all probably know that it was declared a National Historic Site in 1980. And so I think that, I don't know why the old school wasn't included, but for architecture, we certainly have that in not only downtown, but in many of the houses that you see here in Bartlett. So thank you for letting me speak to you. I certainly appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
And just for the CLG program grants, did you have to be a certified local government, or the Texas Preservation Trust Fund, which is a separate grant program with the Texas Historical Commission? You do not have to be a certified for that program.
That's great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anything else? Thank you, Ms. Little.
Thank you.
So at this point, we would, obviously, we don't have an ordinance. She does have a copy of a model ordinance here that we'd have to adopt in the future. We'd have to look it over. The attorney. There's something to consider. You'll so choose. Send that forward. Anything, Joseph?
No, sir.
So we just need, I guess the only motion that can be taken on this one is if y'all choose to proceed with any future action. Is that correct?
We mentioned we're going to be approved to move forward with the creation of an ordinance.
Yes, sir.
We could draft, she provided a model ordinance here. You could do that. I would, the ordinance sounds simple enough to adopt. My concern would be the ripple effects of it. So now you have an ordinance, but how does that affect your permitting process now? How does that affect your development standards? What is that going to take on the staff demands to oversee something like this? What sort of filings are going to be needed? What is defined as our historic zone? That's a lot of different questions. The case in point is when we first adopted the permit process, how it was just cold turkey adopted. And then we had to deal with all of these back end effects of what does this mean? What does this mean? What is a building code? It'd probably be in the best interest to do that legwork first. Then when it comes time to adopt the ordinance, everybody's on the same page about what exactly that looks like. And then we can hit the ground running at that point. So that's kind of why I was referencing the creation of a historic preservation as a good precursor to eventually get to something like the adoption of an ordinance. That would kind of be my thoughts on something like that.
CLT would resource as well.
I'm sure you'd have a resource available to help a historic preservation committee kind of go through some research and developing guidelines that committee could then bring to city council for more discussion.
We
And
would have to adopt that committee.
that would be my recommendation, is to create a historic preservation committee first. And then their task would be to, in part, develop a historic preservation ordinance for potential consideration.
He's still young.
It's been a long day.
Yeah.
Okay, so we support a motion or moving on?
Go ahead.
This can always be another future agenda item to follow up on. And
Yeah. Assemble a group.
Workshop or?
A historical committee would, well,
Mhm.
I would make that motion to establish a historical committee prior to
we can follow up on the February 27th with the formal creation of that historic preservation. So for between now and the 27th, we can put together what that looks like, number of members, bylaws, things of that nature, and then we can hit the ground running there.
All right, Mr. Weaver's got a motion on the table. Jones, a second of that. Gale, a second. All in favor?
Great time to do it.
Ms. Little, thank you for your presentation, and looks like
Yes,
we'll
Thank
be,
you.
looking this over and creating and getting back in touch with you. All right,
Thank
I'm
you.
sure we'll be calling you with questions.
Oh, yeah. Who seconded?
Okay.
It was 5-0.
Item number 11, discuss, review, and take any necessary action related to resolution 2023-0213-11, ordering a municipal general election for May 6, 2023, to elect 2 members of the city council for 2-year terms and provide for 2 separate proposition ballot measures related to amending permissible alcohol sales within the city limits.
One was for liquor, but what was the other proposition?
Right now, in Bell County, you can do, I believe it was, I'll pull it up. But basically what the city does not allow, period, is wine for on-premise consumption and restaurant mixed beverages, think margarita night, anywhere in the city limits. So we talked about developing some incentives to get a brick and mortar food establishment here. Our neighboring communities do not offer that restaurant mixed. So they're evaluating our Tri-City area, and we have the restaurant mix. That's going to be a strong incentive, another revenue avenue for them if that was an available option. And so in order for that to change, there's a lot of steps that need to happen to amend local.
Yeah, I think you said one time that the counties don't do this, Bell and Willis. It has to be the city council of the city.
The city can choose. Now, there's a certain sequence of events, but what we had to get something in place. If it's going to be on the May ballot, the county has to receive that information, the ordering of the election, by the end of this week. So this was the meeting to do it. So there's going to be some additional steps that need to happen in coordination with TABC. And we'll just take it from there. But this was the first step to initiate that conversation. At bare minimum, we'll do we'll have to do the council terms anyway. So we'll see.
So was there a point where wine was taken out? Because it looks like, look at the old city ordinances, wine and beer are both specifically listed as approved, like if I go back to the 60s. Was it taken out and it's just kind of missed in some of the weird codification stuff that's happened?
Well, I'm not sure what happened in the past. Where I pulled that information from was the TABC website, and that said as of August 2021. And I know from August 21 to current, there weren't any local measures to amend that. And so the most reliable piece of information that I had was through TABC, not any local records.
Because the ordinances look like it has always been allowed here. I couldn't see where it was not allowed.
Like I said, the only thing I could go off of was what TABC said.
So let's make it official and let's get it in.
Jeez.
I think that's, we just need a motion to, it's a resolution, approve resolution as presented. That's correct. Thank you. Two, yes, sir. And that's listed in the agenda, 2 separate proposition ballot measures, and it's also in the header and in the body of the resolution itself. Yes, sir.
Would this cover both counties?
That's one of the things we'll have to distinguish with TABC, but ideally it does. Yes, sir.
We're a unique entity, not too many cities are like that. Let somebody come up with 8 or 10.
I'll make a motion that we put on the resolution 2023-0213-11. Add to it what you need to on the May 6th election.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper.
I'm saying that.
Ray, you're seconding.
You're trying to make that motion for 5 minutes.
So we have a Vicky Cooper motion and a Ray Uson second. All in favor? Motion carries. Jesse, are you voting? You sleep?
Sleep.
All in favor? 4. All against? Are you 4 against? Carries 5-0.
Let's do it with barbecue.
All right, let me sign that real fast.
Benitez is always in there.
Boom.
Thank you.
Item number 12, discuss, review, taking necessary action related to resolution 2023-2021-13-12, calling for an additional regular meeting of the city council to be scheduled each month on the 4th Monday. We've talked about this a couple months now, going to 2 meetings a month. This is the final resolution to make that, where we don't have to have super quorum to meet. Mr. Phillips has made that motion. Mr. Phillips motion.
I'll second it.
I think Jesse said.
Oh, it's sitting, okay. I hope you enjoy it, guys.
All in favor? Carries 5-0.
Jesse said his birthday.
Yeah, really. No, there's it's a mix up for the last year.
Item 13, receive update on 2023 Winter Storm Mara emergency response and disaster recovery. It was cold, it was hell, we survived, tires back on,
Here we are.
here we are,
I had grandkids for 3-4 days.
ready for the next one. Boom.
Yep.
Anybody got anything else to add?
Nope.
I think we did, Jake. First of all.
Me. Oh, wait. And then we have.
Anybody want to talk about this? I mean,
I'd rather not. I'd rather not.
I kind of blocked out
I'd
my
rather
mind
not,
too,
yeah.
but we had power outages, we got power outages
We
fixed.
did great. We lived through it. Everybody's good.
We're adding to the EOP, the Emergency Operations Plan. That's something we'll evaluate every time we have to go through this. How can we improve?
Yep.
We're in the process of doing that. So we did pretty good this time.
Oh, you learn from pirates.
Appreciate every city employee who showed up, every volunteer who showed up, every
Mhm.
citizen that was extremely patient.
Made the
Except for
difference.
one guy, huh?
Yeah.
It's all right. We got through it. Nobody got hurt. Moving on. No action on that one.
Mayor, I would recommend that we enter executive session at this time.
Item 14.
16. Well, we will return to item 14 and 15 after executive session.
Well, we can knock that. I think we just jump on to number 15. and judges.
Well, 14 would pertain to,
I know that we're at 15. That could just be like boom. Boom.
okay,
We'll go ahead and knock out number 15.
okay.
Discuss, review, take any necessary action. We're skipping item 14, moving on to 15. Discuss, review, and take any necessary action related to the receiving letter of resignation from Bartlett Housing Authority Commissioner Frank Graham. So Mr. Graham had called me earlier this month and asked to resign off the housing board. I got a signed resignation.
I make it.
I accept it.
You gonna do it?
Well, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, go ahead.
I wanna,
Ray has made that motion.
I had a hard time.
I need a second.
Second.
Vicky seconded.
Give the madam, Philip.
I'm sorry.
Guy, Philip.
All in favor?
Frank.
5-0. I will make an appointment to replace him at the next meeting.
Good.
Okay, so
I
what?
got a resignation from him. Okay, at this time, we got to go back to item 14. We're going to do that in discuss that after executive session. So we're going to move, at this time, we'll reserve the right to go into executive session in accordance with the Texas Government Code, section 551.001. The city council will recess into executive session to discuss the following. Item number 16, deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, compensation, reassignment, duties, discipline, and/or dismissal of a public employee or officer regarding the journeyman lineman and journeyman or lineman apprentice. And we will go into executive session at 8:45 p.m.
Y'all want me to leave? Y'all can just do it in here.
Y'all can stay.
Turn 72, love to see now. You get far in the wall.
Y'all have to leave, we'll be right back.
I'll go get some grapes or something. We've been talking about it. That's why I offered. No.